let's get into the best bets, boys. It's tradition here that we start with guys at 1 in the previous week. Eric, even though producer Jason tried to strip you of that win a week ago in the early graphic, you did get the win with Washington. We'll start with you here. You're targeting the Commanders game again this week. What's it going to be and why?
Yeah, I'm going with under. I make it, good to about 44.5, but it's 46.5 right now, minus 105. Again, this is, everybody make a case that this is a get right spot for Seattle. That could be the case. I do think Geno Smith has struggled, but he doesn't mean he's a terrible quarterback. But when I just look at the success rates versus the EPAs for this team, these are two teams that can move the football enough to be dangerous, but not enough to score in some cases. The Washington Commanders have stripped out some of the variance associated with their offense, the sacks and some of the interceptions by making Sam Howell sort of more of a three-step drop player, more of a low time to throw player, which I think, again, plays to the game being more confined. I also think defensively, the Seattle is going to want to run the football and play kind of into that game script as well. And then lastly, I just think neither coach is going to do what it takes on fourth downs to score touchdowns as opposed to field goals. And if this total was in the 30s, like that would probably be an issue, but this total is in the mid 40s and field goals are probably, a win on every single possession in that regard. So I like under in Washington versus Seattle.
All right, Eric taking the under in the Commanders Seahawks game, which we covered earlier. I'm going to go up next here, and I'm going to stick with the theme of totals. Got one right last week. I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints and Minnesota Vikings under 41.5, minus 113. You could play the 41 as well. Those are all fine. 41 is a key number. I wouldn't go much lower than that. The Saints have kind of figured out the red zone woes a little bit, but I'm factoring that into the equation. They're using Taysom Hill a lot more, which has helped them altogether. But a few things here. First and foremost, credit to Josh Dobbs last week. Pretty incredible performance. Like, offensive line doesn't even know the cadence. They're snapping the ball on the sidelines. He's getting Kevin O'Connell ringing into him, trying to explain what's going on these plays. He'll probably get better with an extra week of practice, but also the Saints are now preparing for Josh Dobbs. The Falcons didn't last week. And what I don't like about Minnesota's offense is they can't run the ball. They're the 6th worst rushing EPA in the entire league. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball on the Saints. And think back to Josh Dobbs in Arizona and how he fell off a cliff when James Conner got hurt and Arizona could no longer run the ball. I'm still fairly high on the Saints defense, so I like that matchup. On the other side of things, it's a little bit boomer bust, and that's scary with Brian Flores. Obviously, they're blitzing at a very high rate, but they also mix in a ton of cover two. They play cover two at the 2nd highest rate in the entire league. That's been a disastrous defense for Derek Carr this year. 31% success rate against cover two, only better than Baker Mayfield. Negative 0.33 EPA per play against that defense, considerably worse than any other defensive scheme as well. I think this one is just a little bit too high in this game. So I'm going to go back to an under. I hate rooting for these low unders, but I think this one's a little bit too high. Vikings, Saints, under 41.5, good down to 41. Suma, you're back in business this week after a week off. You're going to Pittsburgh. It's the Steelers and Packers. Who do you like and why?
Yes, this time I'm siding with the Voodoo Magic at home against a very underwhelming Packers team. Yes, the Steelers are very, very fortunate to be 5-3 with all their Voodoo Magic turnovers, close games, but they played a very tough schedule. By my numbers, they played the toughest schedule in the league, third toughest on offense, first toughest toughest on defense. They played most of the season without Cam Hayward, who's back. Deontay Johnson missed 4 weeks. He's back. And now they are facing a Packers team that I'm super, super low on. The Packers are very underwhelming, below average team on both sides of the ball after playing the, by my numbers, 4th easiest schedule on defense, 3rd easiest on offense. This offense also cannot move the ball since week 4. The offense ranks 32nd in early down success rate, 32nd in EPA per play. Pretty drastically low numbers. And now I think that after really having a lot of issues beating the Brad Ripien Rams, I think that they are going to run into a buzzsaw now with Pittsburgh. This Pittsburgh defense, their defensive line should get to John Love. I'm expecting a very mistake-prone game by him. And then on the other side, yes, I'm still having some concerns with the Steelers offense, but I think they are getting slightly better. And I also think that they should be able to just do enough to somehow get this game home against this Packers team. Yeah, give me the Steelers.
All right, Suma going with the Steelers in this one. Hitman, we're going to end it off with you. Hey, man, we're only halfway through the season. The turnaround starts now. Who's the pick and why?
We're going with the Ravens -6. Let's start with how good Baltimore has been this year. They're plus 115 in point differential, and they're the number 3 ranked team in DVOA that they've ever had through 9 games. Plus, there's just all this talk about the Browns defense, but the Ravens defense this year, number 1 in YPP, 2nd in EPA, 5th in success rate allowed. And plus, when you look at the Browns, I'm not sold on Deshaun Watson being 100% yet. The Browns offense against Arizona in non-garbage time, 2 touchdowns. One was on an 11-yard drive. The other was on a 49-yard drive where the ball was tipped into the air on 3rd down into Amari Cooper's hands. They had 17 first downs and 4.6 yards per play against arguably the worst defense in the NFL. And for the entire season, Deshaun Watson has had the highest inaccurate target rate, 16% in the entire league. Cleveland's without both of their starting tackles from the start of the season. And then just from a matchup perspective, from when these teams played in the earlier in the season, Lamar Jackson was a super efficient 15 of 19 passing, 186 yards. Baltimore's running backs rushed 21 times for 102 yards. And this was in a game where they didn't have much pressure put on their offense. So I just think that Cleveland's offense is bottom 4th of the league right now until we see Deshaun Watson show something to us. So give me Baltimore -6.
All right, Baltimore -6. I always love the chat reactions while Hitman's giving his best bet. The run starts now. The run starts now.